joining us right now. He is fantastic. He is one half of your play-by-play broadcast color analyst duo for your Sacramento Kings, along, of course, with Kyle Draper, the one, the only Mark Jones. Mark, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm great. You see, Dave, Jason, I learn something every time I listen to you guys, man. I did not know that Denzel's son had a connection to Sacramento. That's wild, man. I remember watching him in what was it? Any Given Sunday, one of those series, Playmakers, one of those series. Yeah. Man.
Yeah, John David was running back for the Sacramento Gold Miners back in the day.
The Mountain Lions.
Yeah. I'm sorry. How sad is this? I got the name wrong, and I was the sideline reporter for radio. And Mark, I tried one time. I approached Denzel, and just to see if Mr. Washington, could we get a word on your? And he looked at me, and he said, "Son, I'm not even going to try an impersonation. Son, I'm just here to watch my boy." And so that's all I needed to know. But then by the end of the year, he found out I had the stat sheet. And so he'd come over, he grabbed the stat sheet, he'd point a couple things out. He's an excellent football mind. And that's my relationship with Denzel Washington. I was his stat boy.
That is so cool, man. That is so cool. That's better than me. I met him at All-Star Weekend once for a brief moment, and that was it. But that's really good, man. I didn't know that Tom Hanks' son had ties to the city too. The city that this morning is 5th in the Western Conference.
How about that? Look at that. Yeah. And also, if you go to Google Maps, as of last night, there is the Beam is now on Google Maps. It is defined as a place of worship. I'm not making that up. You can all check that out for yourselves. And my goodness, Mark, as you guys get ready to leave today for this road trip, Jason and I were just talking. I said, Sabonis is going to have to deal with Giannis and Embiid. And you know what? A listener corrected me on the text line. He says, you keep saying Sabonis has to deal with. That's the old thinking. Those teams are going to have to deal with Domas Sabonis.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, a double-double threat amongst league leaders in double-doubles. And, we saw what happened when guys don't respect what he can do shooting the basketball now. In particular, the last several games, half dozen or more, 8-9 games, he's been shooting the three really well. And you saw what happened, especially in that Clipper game when Zubats gave him all kinds of room. And if he lays back in the paint, well, that's a 15-footer that's wide open. And he started off, Sabonis did like 7 for 7 in that game. And, they're going to have to deal with him at the offensive end. And, not just his scoring, but they can't give Domas all day to, pick apart Philadelphia and or Milwaukee with the passing lanes, the great passing that he's, been able to execute in Mike Brown's new offense, hitting cutters, Herder, Fox, whomever it might be. So, yeah, it's a nice two-way deal now, and they got a game plan for the Kings offensively as well as at the other end.
As we're talking with Mark Jones, all guests come to you on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Mark, about Sabonis, not only the offense has just been amazing what he's done, but what have the Kings done specifically in your mind to, one, maybe protect him defensively? He's not in as much foul trouble, and certainly points in the paint at the very beginning was just a huge issue. So where are the adjustments been defensively to make it all look better on that side of the floor?
Yeah, you know what? Sabonis deserves a lot of credit for his rim protection, even though he's not lauded or really have much of a reputation as a rim protector. But over the last, 5-6 games, if you look at the analytics of it, and I'm not a huge numbers guy, but the eye test and the analytics will tell you that he's been one of the better rim protectors in the league over the last, half a dozen games. Mike Brown talked about some of the rotations that the Kings have made on the back end of their defense. It goes back to some of the on-court sessions during games that he's actually stepped out on the floor and corrected guys like Terrence Davis a couple of games ago. Things they've done on the back end to pick up teams, opponents, short rollers in pick and roll defense, or whether it be transition defense. But the rim protection has gotten a lot better as a result, and they've been able to force teams to shoot more mid-range jumpers and more threes, and it's really helped out.
Mark Jones, play-by-play voice of your Sacramento Kings, with us. Mark, we're so used to losing here and we're so thankful for anything good. But do you see some of the same things we do when you look at Kevin Huerter and how his 3-point shooting is just complete? I mean, 4 of 31 we were just discussing over his last few games. Foxy has been banged up here a little bit. It almost, you could make an argument this team isn't really, maybe they're scratching the surface, but they're not at their peak yet.
No, there's a ceiling in a couple, I think 2 or 3 more levels that they haven't reached. And I really feel instinctively like it's going to happen, because when you look at the fact that, we've been able to win ball games, or at least be very competitive in the last 4 or 5 games without De'Aaron at his normal self, fighting through a little bug and some nicks and bruises. And Huerter hasn't shot the ball from deep particularly well, yet he's still creating a lot of stuff off the dribble and still getting twos and knocking down twos and making shots in the paint, getting Monk to contribute off the bench. Although he's playing a little bit more at his level than those other 2 guys. But the fact that guys aren't really, Harrison Barnes hasn't played even close to his best basketball yet, guys.
Yeah.
And Sacramento's still in 5th place in the Western Conference. So, on that side of the ball, that's one thing. And this is something, Jason and Dave, that I said earlier. I said, doubters from afar were going crazy and ranting about how, this guy is supposed to be a defensive-minded coach and we're 27th in defense. I said, okay, it's October, buddy. It's October. It's early November. I said, if you know basketball, think about the Boston Celtics last year, that at All-Star break were 15th or 16th in the NBA in defensive efficiency. They ended up number 1 in defensive efficiency, made an exponential leap because the guys bought in and it clicked. That's how it happens on defense, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. But this morning, when you look at Sacramento defensively, they're 18th. That rating is going to go up. I'm telling you, they're going to end up in the upper half, at least 15 or higher. You couple that with an offense that has been top 5 for most of the year, and the net rating for Sacramento is in the top 5 overall. That makes for a playoff team, not a play-in team, but a playoff team, provided everybody stays healthy.
Mark, obviously you're here, you're bouncing around doing other games. I'm curious, in your travels, whether it's other coaches, other broadcasters, other people that you come across that know you do Kings games as well, what are they saying to you kind of public or privately about the Kings?
They're talking about De'Aaron Fox, obviously, and how he seems to have, before this recent kind of, last 4 or 5 games, how he seems to have taken it to another level. And, they notice his work. I talked to them about his work at both ends of the floor, defensively, especially, about how hard and Mike Brown is coaching him, maybe harder than anyone else has coached him in his career, and how Fox enjoys being coached hard and responds it. They're talking about Sacramento scoring as much as anything else, and just blown away. There's perception out there nationally that, wow, they're scoring all these points. How are they doing it? Can they keep it up? And, because I think people are thrown off by the fact that Mike Brown the narrative is that Mike is a defensive coach. Yet here's Sacramento out here scoring 120, 118 points a game. What's going on out there? That seems to be the vibe nationally. And, I explained to them, hey, listen, you've got Sabonis as a great hub, passing off the elbows with split cuts and ball movement and unselfishness, guys buying in. And they're figuring out that Sacramento's for real, and that this is something that is going to continue. And everybody, of course, asked me about the purple beam. That's the first thing they ask about, guys, at the beam. I'm like, you got to talk to Vivek or John Reinhardt about that one. Yeah. And when the aliens come for us, they're going to come to Sacramento first and say, hey, this basketball team is pretty good.
Last question for Mark Jones. Mark, there's 2 things I tend to have when I'm watching and listening to you and Katie: a thesaurus and access to Google, because my IQ could freeze water, but I love hearing the references. And you had one, I don't remember if I've heard before. It was busted, disgusted, can't be trusted. I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm such a Jason will tell you, I'm a nerd for play-by-play. I think you guys are superheroes. I love what you do. I love dissecting it. I really am. If you guys had trading cards, I'd have them. This is a true story. You never ask a magician about how he does his tricks, but I am curious for the play-by-play voices of the future. You know, how much, I know you're prepped better than anyone, but how much do you think about phrasing? How much do you think about catchphrases? How much do you think about verbiage before you go into a game, if at all?
Something that I like to stay in the moment, Dave and Jason. I really don't think about things. It really kind of goes back to kind of culturally. I grew up around a lot of folks that when we watch sports and things on TV, we talk to the TV like it can hear us. So when I'm on the couch watching a game with my wife and somebody makes a move or there's a good fake, I'm like, oh man, you put him on a cheap Delta flight. Look at that, you know. and I'll just say, I'll talk to the TV, and that kind of comes out when I broadcast games. I don't think it comes off as organic if you go into it thinking about it.
Sure.
But, you know, I love pop culture. I listen to a lot of, you know, speakeasy and hip hop music, and love the lyrics of some of the great musicians. So, you know, sometimes I'll hear some of those and it'll make an impact. It'll land on me and it'll be filed away deep on the hard drive and it'll come out during a great moment, or it might be something that I've said to myself. So that's kind of the crux of it all, guys.
No. You know, you do a phenomenal job.
I have fun. You got to have fun, guys.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You got to have fun. I keep telling my colleagues at ESPN, I'm like, the E in ESPN stands for entertainment.
Yep.
You know, Entertainment Sports Programming Network. This is not science. It's fun. It's sports. So you got to make it fun.
Yep. A lot of fun this year, and we can watch you and Katie and sometimes Kyle bringing us all the action on television as you get ready to fly to Milwaukee, a 6-game road trip, and I know you're going to have all your duties as well, but you do a phenomenal job, and we appreciate all the fun you're having. Here's to a successful road trip, and we really appreciate your time as always, my man.
Man, it's going to be a fun trip, and it's like my colleague once said about Milwaukee, was as we head there first, you never have to worry about what you wear in Milwaukee, but because your clothes are always in style.
Nice.
Take care and drive safe, my man.
Have a good one.
You too.
That's Mark Jones.
I heard that one.
I not either.